Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. I'm back in the house, baby. Did y'all have fun while I was gone, man? Y'all look like y'all were having some good old conversation about HBCU sports culture. I'll tell you about my trip after the show. I'm not going to let y'all bait me into too much of that talk right now. Because I have some good stuff off the record. It was good. It was a good trip. I will say this part of the business trip, that we are moving forward collectively about bringing some HBCUs to the Bahamas. And we'll leave it at that until we can get some more information, finalize some things. But it looks like it's getting a little closer. So with that, Charles, let me start with you. How you doing? I saw you in front of the ship. You led the ship well. You led the ship well, I should say. I appreciate you letting me jump on and share a little bit about my space in the Bahamas. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Dr. Cavil. You look tan, rested. You got the work done over there in the Bahamas. And me and Mike, we held it down over here.
I know y'all did. Mike, how you doing?
Oh, doing good, Doc. How you doing? We held it down. We tried to. I didn't have anybody that could shut my mic off. Man, we had what did they say? When the cat's away?
All day.
When
the cat's away all day.
I should have known. Boy, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. With that being said, let me jump right into it. This is Dr. Cavil, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Welcome to episode 166 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small. From the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KSOH 1230 AM studios with Texas Radio Hall of Famer. That is Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Got a lot going on. Today's show will be a good one as we'll discuss just the latest in the HBCU news. A lot going on in so many different directions. We'll see what is in the house and what direction you want to go to. Well, with that being said, let me take it this. No, I'm gonna let y'all. I'm gonna stay with you all. I'm gonna go to Mike. What's on your mind, Mike?
Well, we got lots of news. Some of it we tried to get to this past week, but J.R. Smith has enrolled at North Carolina A&T and wants to play for the golf team, evidently. So nearly two decades after skipping college to go to the NBA, J.R. Smith is headed to an HBCU. Smith is now an Aggie. He has enrolled in North Carolina A&T University. One of the best liberal studies programs around is at A&T. So we congratulate him on that. He is along with his brethren, Chris Paul, who attends Winston-Salem University. Smith is part of a crew of NBA stars who played in a charity game alongside Chris Paul at Winston-Salem University CE Gain Center during the most recent NBA lockout. So he has lots of comments, but he seems very, very excited to start his next endeavor. So Smith hopes to play for the golf team. Not sure what his handicap is. He said he's learned the game from pro basketball Hall of Famer Moses Malone, evidently. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's pretty big. I got to get Charles's perspective on this. I'm sure he might be thinking about coming out of retirement. He retire one sport, one business, and be like, I want to go suit it up. He gonna go back and see if he got some eligibility to talk about waiver me this. I want to pick up the golf club. This should be dangerous. One of the best liberal study programs is at A&T, and it just so happens that I got deep roots in Carolina with Chris Paul, CJ Paul, end quote, Swift told WFMY, quote, after that, things started trickling down. I like that.
Yep.
So many ways. What are your thoughts on this? Especially the golf part of it. I really wanted to hear what Charles had to say on this.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I know J.R. Smith, he's an avid golfer, along with quite a few NBA players, Steph Curry being the most notable one right now in terms of golfing. But it was very interesting for him to mention Moses Malone. He learned the game from Moses Malone. And I remember back when the late, great Moses Malone was playing around here, boy, he could drive the ball. So, a lot of those guys, they have that great hand-eye coordination with regards to basketball, and they're able to transfer those skills over to golf. So, it's just one of those games. Once you pick it up and that golf bug bites you, it's hard to put those clubs down. You start doing like Charles Bishop, and you travel with them wherever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know this. J.R. Smith, excuse me. He'd have to be one cool teammate. I mean, even the professional says, all the other stuff, we kid him a lot and he likes to have fun. But all of them say he's a great teammate, works hard and all that. And if you think about his skill set, you can tell when he puts his mind on something, he does it. He started coming out very athletic, made himself an outside shooter, dangerous, won championships, played a good person in the locker room to get it done. So I can imagine if he's able and allowed NCAA to play on A&T golf team, coach brings him in, you talking about one heck of a teammate. He would have to be pretty cool to be busting around, getting some perspectives and learning back and forth. And in the classroom, boy, I tell you, watching him focus on his book, some of those conversations and dialogues that come up, that would have to be really intriguing in terms of fellow students, particularly from the professor side. That would be interesting as well. Let me give some shout out some of the folks that have joined us. Make sure that we give them I Love, Keith Martin. Chuck is giving us some love with Alan talking about sounds like the better show with them hot mics on. So they got a little bit of backdrop there. So that's what we do. Y'all heard, we told you before, some of the conversations off the mic are the ones that get really intriguing. Kay Johnson says, time for class, no doubt. Charles and Mike told all their little secrets. I was laughing. I'm glad I was gone. Bulldog Nation. I know I'm gonna have to find out what all the people said, because what y'all really said about me off the mic now. Whitemore says, good evening, Dean. Did you review your professors via your class cam? You no doubt about it. I was checking them out. It was quiet. Make sure that they understood the assignment. But as adjunct professors and coming into the lab, I thought they did a heck of a job. We'll let y'all grade them. How about that? G. Boom Holly says, it's getting closer to opening of HBCU football in Atlanta with the SWAC MEAC Challenge. No doubt, that should be a good one. Karen Griffin is checking in from Southern California as always, representing as she does. Akuria Arnold, Carl Edmond, a couple other ones have joined us. Alan Malone, Stephen Gaither says, ooh-wee. Joseph Anthony Goodwin is watching. Who else we have in here? Stephen Gaither giving that shout out to Winston-Salem State University. I thought Stephen A. Smith did a great job with his comments talking about J.R. Smith and making sure that he's like, he went to the wrong university. He should have went 40 miles down. I thought that was shout out. Chad Cooper says, good evening, professors from Baton Rouge.
Red
Jerry Boone, he says, go Jags, obviously. Let's see what else we got here with some other folks before we get back into it. Jerome G. Sutton says, hello, everyone. As we said, all in the house, keep them coming. Make sure we get some of the great stuff out there. Let me go to you, Charles. What direction did you want to go in discussing some of the hot news out there? What is on your mind at this time?
Well, no doubt we're going to obviously talk football. We're going into the fall season, but today the soccer got their predicted order of finish coming out of the SWAC office, and Alabama State was once again tabbed to win the SWAC in terms of women's soccer. 2021 SWAC women's soccer regular season is set to begin this week with several league teams in action. The 2021 SWAC women's soccer tournament will be held November 4th through the 7th on the campus of Prairie View A&M University. So the predicted order of finish from 10th back to 1, Mississippi Valley at 10, UAPB at 9, Alcorn 8, Texas Southern 7. Southern comes in at 6, PV comes in at 5, Jackson State 4, Alabama A&M at 3, Grambling number 2, and Alabama State Lady Hornets. They are predicted to win the SWAC women's soccer regular season.
Let me stick with you, Charles. Do you agree with that analysis they got in terms of the team picked at the top, or anyone outside of the top 10 teams you say may be more in the hunt than what they picked at?
Honestly, I do think Grambling and Jackson State can pose a bit of a challenge to Alabama State, but Alabama State, they've been the gold standard for the past couple of seasons with regards to women's soccer.
Let me shift over to you, Mike, and thoughts of that. What were your thoughts in terms of the preseason ranking coming in?
No, I kind of agree with CB. I kind of look at history, and you look who has been, in the top. Alabama State's got, their preseason top picks. They've got a couple coming. Grambling has been strong at times, been very cyclic. So, but I think the gold standard has been, the chosen team. So, I do think and that's Alabama State. But if you look at the preseason All-American picks, it's a very mixed list as well. So, you got actually more players from Grambling and Prairie View that are picked in preseason first team All-American, which is very interesting. When you have a team that's picked as the preseason favored, that means that team typically has a number or plethora of players picked in the preseason all SWAC team, first or second. And here you have quite a few Grambling, quite a few Prairie View A&M. As a matter of fact, an abundance of Prairie View and Grambling A&Ms. So, and I thought that was very interesting. Historically, the last 3 or 4 years, Grambling State has been very competitive, but looking at the number of Prairie View players on the preseason all SWAC teams, first and second team, it looks like someone is looking at Prairie View and saying maybe they should have been ranked a little bit higher than 5. But I do agree with the Alabama State pick, just based on past precedents and their performance.
No doubt about it. When you think about that, the thing that jumped out to me is obviously Howard. We heard about that officially. Howard is no longer in the league. That took place during the COVID last season and went into it. The other thing, obviously, Bethune-Cookman and FAMU are not playing women's soccer. So those teams are not ranked in there. So I thought that was interesting as you get lathered up and excited about everything else. That'll be a little different from volleyball. But,
Yep.
Charles, what are your thoughts?
I wanted to ask what conference did Howard go to?
Howard went to NEC, Northeastern Conference, I believe.
Okay.
They came in there. They got support about moving forward there on the women's side. I think both the men's and women's and maybe a swimming as well. But they ended up taking about 5 sports over to the NEC, I believe it was.
Sure.
And put those sports all together over there. Remember, you still have South Carolina State that has women's soccer, as well as Delaware State, if I'm not mistaken, are the 3. So you do not have MEAC offering a conference sport in terms of women's soccer, and that's why previously for a couple of years you saw Howard doing that. But I thought that was a fascinating perspective. It'll get a little more interesting for volleyball because you will see Bethune-Cookman and FAMU in terms of that area. So that was one fascinating thought I had there. Before we get into it, we'll stay with the SWAC in terms of a new era, and we'll discuss a little bit on the other side, the new era under UAPB Chancellor taking over the leadership in terms of SWAC. I want to get your thoughts on that, but stick with us. We'll be right back after this break. This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
6 seconds. This is Dr. Bill with Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, bringing you live. And as we said, SWAC is moving in a new era. Dr. Andrew Bugini transitioning as he's retiring, but he ended his 2-year stint as the chair of the SWAC Council of Presidents and Chancellors, and the second vice chair stepping up in that role, which is Chancellor Alexander. I thought it was fascinating how they really did a great job in terms of some of the things that took place under President Ugini. The expansion was one of the big ones. That was a nice kudo to check off the boxes you coming out of the conference. But those don't know, Dr. Lawrence Alexander, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. I have to put this out there. He is a man of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So he knows a little bit about something about that 06. So, you know, I'm excited about having him in the leadership role. Quote, over the course of the leadership, Chancellor Alexander has shown a steadfast commitment to the forward progression and advancement of our student athletes and the league membership, SWAC Commissioner Dr. Charles McCullen said. He also stated, we look forward to working with him to further enhance our brand in all facets while simultaneously improving the overall quality experience for all of our student athletes in the 18 sports which we currently sponsor. We get into this a little more, and this is a chance we'll get to mix it up because I think it's going to be intriguing as you consider to see the churning. We see it obviously FCS level, SWAC expansion of Bethune-Cookman and FAMU, but we see it with the other conference, OVC down to 7 teams. You still have the Atlantic Sun. They have 5 teams, so they're looking to get to 6. Will they end up getting another Big South school? Will they get another OVC school? You know, McNeese is out there. Are they going to stay in the Southland? Are they going to move over to the WAC? Or are they going to kind of wait and come over to the Atlantic Sun? So I wonder how all that's going to foot. You know, you take another school that leaves out of the any of those conferences, specifically OVC. What does that do? You get down to 6 teams. Does Tennessee State or some of the other schools in the OVC, do they start thinking differently? Is the SWAC going to be looking forward to expand past 12 with Chancellor Alexander if somehow Tennessee State comes to the table? And we talk about these super conferences, 14, 16 SEC. Is that something? And that's just food for thought. I haven't heard any word of that, but would not be surprised if you see the other schools in terms of the other conferences, in terms of the OVC or the Big South or the Southland, in terms of losing another member. So I'm intriguing to get your thoughts first on Chancellor Alexander taking over the role of the chairman of the SWAC Council of Presidents. We got a little more input in terms of seeing them in action in terms of expansion. So let me stick with you, Mike, first in terms of your thoughts on that, and then what happens if the dam breaks and another team leaves the OVC or the Big South or the South?
So, with regard to, Dr. Alexander taking over the chairman, I agree, he has a demonstrative background, but you wonder kind of what's next in the kitchen. He's been there, he's worked under Dr. Houdini, he's worked under that regime, but and he's been there for conference expansion, if you will. He's been there for the branding, he's been there but you wonder, coming in, what's next on his agenda plate? Is it additional expansion? Are there other branding? Or what's the next step in the branding of the SWAC? Because the Council of Presidents, they have a big say-so in that. So you wonder kind of what's next on the agenda. You probably have to know that he was probably chosen, and as part of the process, he had to come to the table with some of his own ideas that he's picked up and put in his pocket while serving under Dr. Houdini. So you kind of wonder, what's the direction now? I know folks that are inside that room have a better idea, but this is an exciting new direction for the SWAC by far. And the Council of Presidents plays a big part. And Dr. Cavil, and you probably know this better than I do, far better than I do, that they have the ultimate say so in a lot of matters. They are the major stakeholders. You know this as well, Bishop. So you wonder, kind of what's their direction in terms of the SWAC, or the SWAC athletic programs and the SWAC as a whole, their branding, their program. So, there's a lot of curiosity, but there's a lot of excitement from my perspective with that. So, and I'll as far as the OVC, who knows? So, if they lose one, who, where would that person go? Who would that pick up? That seems to be a big puzzle piece. If you look at what's happening across the college landscape, who knows where they're going to go? My bigger question is, will they delve further into the HBCU ranks, I guess, and how will that impact the HBC, the CIAAs of the world, and maybe even potential, I don't know if maybe the SIAC, but maybe the CIAAs of the world. Would there be relationships? Would they reach out to any of those institutions as well? That's the question that comes to the fray. There's plenty of schools they can pick from, but where in terms of the HBCU ranks, who would they pick from? Or is there an interest at Linux Conference as well? Is there an interest in any other HBCU institutions that has a reverberating effect on either the MEAC or the CIAA? Those are my questions.
Great questions, Charles. Thoughts, or did you want to answer any of those questions that Mike putting out there?
Yeah, I don't think I can echo it better than what Mike has said. This is an era of conference churning, as we've talked about, and this is we're talking about the SWAC in this upward trajectory, and you want to be sure that under this new leadership that it continues in this same upward track. And I think those are questions that strategic questions that have to be asked. Will expansion continue to be on the table in this era of what some might say is super conferences? And are there schools out there that add to the brand value of the conference? The question becomes, are there marketable institutions out there that television is going to be a huge piece of the pie going forward? So you look at those sorts of institutions, if there is expansion on the table that sort of are appealing to television viewers. So it could go in any direction in that regards, whether you're talking about a predominantly white institution or if you're talking about another HBCU. These are all questions that this new leadership is going to have to tackle, and we're getting into just a different era, post-COVID era. Name, image, and likeness are part of the packaging now. So there are so many things within the gumbo that this Council of Presidents are really going to have to kind of take a look at the gumbo and and decipher where this conference needs to go, because it's such an exciting time, especially when you take a look at student athletes that are looking at HBCUs once again. This is a very, very pivotal time within the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
Let me add a little more in that. You know, obviously there was talk about FBS, but now we see even more changing with the FBS. We see the NCAA having a meeting in terms of rules. What are your thoughts in terms of how things may play out in regards to those things on the table and thought process there? Sticking with you, Charles, how does that fit into this dynamic in terms of everything is changing so much and so fast right now?
I mean, I think the next question is, where is the money? Is the money at the FBS level? Are there, you know, that's a question that I'm very curious about. We have the Celebration Bowl, but is there the opportunity for, once you move up to the FBS level, are there other bowls that are available now to the conference where more teams can be showcased than just the conference winner? So, you know, it's all, you know, questions that kind of have to be examined over the next 3 to 5 years.
Great points. When you talk about FBS, it opens up to not just one bowl, multiple bowls, if you're able, from a conference leadership perspective, to get the multiple bowl tie-ins.
Yeah.
Currently, we have the one tie-in, and we have the at-large bid to the playoffs. But obviously, you see that becomes a little more challenging when you get selected for that versus the automatic selection into a Celebration Bowl at the FCS level along with the MEAC. Or if you go up to the FBS level, now you have the ability to negotiate multiple slots. You know, are you able to now go play a Sun Belt in terms of a conference and finding the second team in the Sun Belt or third team in the Sun Belt playing champion of the SWAC, and then the second team in the SWAC playing a team in terms of the MAC, if you would. So that could be fascinating to see how that would look on multiple levels, and how does the conference navigate that space. Also, Mike, you can jump in on that component of it, but more so in terms of the NCAA. Do you have any indication or gut feeling of where you see the NCAA going with the summer meeting, emergency meeting, if you would, in terms of how that may play out on the landscape, since we're talking about the conference changing and things churning before we get in earnest into the SWAC football season? And we'll bring that up on the second half of the show, getting a little more talk about what are some latest and greatest as teams hit the practice field. What are you hearing and seeing? We'll talk about that after the break. But before they do that, let's stay on the business side of this, rules side of this, the governance side of this. What are your thoughts in terms of the NCAA?
Yeah, with their meeting, my gut feel is two things will be on the table. Number one, name, image, and likeness. I think the NCAA is going to look hard and fast and see, you know, how can they get their hands around this, if they can at all. You know, put some, you know, what I call maybe even stopgap measures or regulators in place. To me, the other item on the table with this changing landscape of expansion, you wonder if there's a paradigm shift in power where suddenly you got the SEC and other conferences being a lot more powerful. You know, is there going to be a paradigm shift, and is the NCAA concerned about this? You got to know they are. You know, what are they going to do about this? The other thing is there's going to create, with all of this shift, there's going to create another layer in the Sun Belts, the MACs of the world, where you're going to have schools moving up if you continue this pattern of expansion. What does this mean for increased bowls? And again, what's the NCAA's involvement in that? How do they keep their hands around the pot? I don't want to say in the pot, but around the pot. So I think those three items, that's my gut feel, will be on the table for discussion in terms of them trying to come out with something. I don't know what they could come out with this name, image, and likeness. You evidently have lots of players already in motion and taking advantage of this. So I think that emergency meeting is that's going to bring out some interesting discussion and input. But the other thing I think they'll address is all of this expansion and what it means for the future of the NCAA. And they've got to make this is happening so fast. They've got to make this decision fast, because to me, time is not on their side.
Yeah, I guess that's the $1 million question for me. I mean, has the NCAA outlived its relevance? I mean, is the power not just going to the conferences? And that's just, the reality of the situation?
I think that's an important question you ask, and it depends on how you break it down and how do you define relevance in terms of the NCAA. I think the relevance of them being the governance structure rule violations, I think that's going to be lessened. I think it'll shift to the conferences to have more power versus the presidents making the decisions at multiple levels within the NCAA. We kind of seen that with autonomy, with it going to the conferences, being able to have that power. That autonomy at that point was more for those that had the money and the financial means to do it. But I think now you're going to see it in terms of rules and governance shift. The one thing that you have to be very mindful of when you think about this decision, as you asked the important question, Charles, is that you have the legal side of this weighing in, where the NCAA was pushing for legislation to give them the authority to continue to act in the way they were. They've been hit by all these legal lawsuits, right? And there have been opinions that have shifted and chipped away at their ability to have that governance at their level. And thus, it's going to be hard for them not to allow the shift to come in. Because if you see all of them making the same decisions, it's easier for legal minds to make the argument for collusion, which is certainly what they don't want. And that's what you had literally for the Supreme Court drop the mic on when we was talking about that Kavanaugh, Supreme Court justice, when he did that. That was really, I think, a significant point that we may not have thought about other than when it was first said, but certainly, kind of going back and we seeing that people just doing the NIL, that was a fundamental shift and a real stake in the heart of the NCAA. Now, the one thing they have that I think that is going to be hard for them just to disappear, as we kind of hear with this madness, the basketball tournament, that's $1 billion financial money. You're not just going to see CBS and TNT to say, all right, you killed the NCAA, we're just going to shift that pot to the SEC or this mega new conference. It's not going to work like that. So I think as long as they have the basketball tournament, you're going to see some relevance for the NCAA to be able to survive, because that's a lot of money just to allow to disappear. No. And when you think about it, they don't really govern anything about the college football playoffs.
Right.
They lost all that a long time ago. So this shift for them to be being picked apart in the governance from football is no different. That just means instead of you having 97% of the power, if there's such a thing, if you allow me to use it, now you have 99%.
Yeah.
And if people of power, they don't have a problem by taking 2% more. It's just in a lot of ways, I think, in American DNA in a capitalistic system. If you can get more, you get more. You don't just be like, I got enough. For whatever reason, it becomes in your DNA to say, well, yeah, I want more. And you push for more, even though you have to have some semblance of rational minds to be like, no, you're creating what we talk about, the monopoly. That's why we shifted all this around. So I think that's the fascinating what you think about. Let's go to this break, and then I'll do a shout out to some of the folks that have joined us. We got more coming in on, excited. So we'll take this quick break. This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We'll close out with the shout outs, and then we'll get into a little more of the football talk. We'll start with you all and get into what you were talking a little bit on Tuesday and opine a little more. And then Charles hasn't thinking he's gotten away with this. He didn't do his homework assignment. He's brought it late. He's got the points deducted, but we're going to give him the chance to turn in his homework assignment. So we're going to challenge that. We're going to back up and make sure that Mike hasn't had any change of heart in terms of his past assignment. As he got his grade back, he might want to change his answers. We're going to check with him after this break. Stick with us. We'll be right back with more on the second half of the show.
Mike ain't changing nothing.
Oh, so you like your grade of 8.
Yes.
Somebody said later, son.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball, So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Ville with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Let me give a shout out before we get right back into it. W. Sherman Miller, Demetria Glenn, J. Max says, good evening, HBCU sports fans. Shout out to everybody. Jamie O. Walker's back in the house. Greetings in Aggie Pride, as they always shout out with that A&T on their chest. They getting it out. The Brian Gauthier says it's better for SIDs to get on the all-conference list after the season. That's a great point. Yeah, that's where you want to shine a little more. Alan Malone, if you can find a way to do both, that'd be pretty nice there. Glenn Brown joining us. George Walker. Anthony Weston says, greeting everyone. Shouting out to all the folks in the house. Stephen A. Miller, Carl Ebner. Let's see, we got Jalen Riley, Ricky Burton, Kevin Crawford. So congratulations, brother Alexander. Shouting out to the brother. I like that. Joseph Anthony Goodwin said, Bulldogs in the lab, hashtag AAMU, no doubt about it. Stephen Gates said he has also interviewed for other jobs recently. Oh, interesting thought process there. Thanks for sharing that, Steve. Trudy Jackson in the house. Dwight Moore chimes back in and says, I hope our HBCUs don't continue to help save those non-HBCU conferences. Great point. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yep.
See it like Sarah Beverly, Brent Brunson, chiming in a little bit. Willie Alexander says, seems that the MEAC has owned the SWAC in the match up. Yeah, no doubt. You can't argue about the record. MEAC SWAC Challenge and the Celebration Bowl. Only thing about the Celebration Bowl, it was A&T that had to hands. Obviously, they were a member of the MEAC, but it wasn't the collective MEAC. It was MEAC as a conference and one representative. Now, if you look at the MEAC SWAC Challenge, it's been several different teams, so hard to make the argument there. But point well taken. Aaron Beavers. Dwight Moore says, I hope we can start demonstrating where the colder water and greener grass is truly located. Woo-wee.
Oh.
Drop the mic on that one. That was pretty nice. I have to remember that one. Aaron Beavers says, maybe the Sun Belt with Georgia State and Southern brings in the local Georgia HBCU. Always been interesting if it were possible. You talking about that would be fascinating because if you bring in a Georgia HBCU, they moving from Division II, skipping FCS and all the way to FBS. So that would be fascinating to see that transition. And you can only transition one level at a time. They won't let you any longer go from Division II to FBS. You used to be able to do that. That is a rule against that now. So that's fascinating when you think about it. Great comments. Michael D. Jones jumped in here. I think that if you bring in, let's say, Southeast Louisiana, which is in the SWAC landscape, happens to be to the CV, is the time to bring in he says PWI, I call it historically white college. I think the HBCUs, as we've done the student, have always been open to historically white colleges. So I think it's important to make sure that we put that out there, that there's only been a couple of times where you had historically white colleges that had interest in the SWAC. In both of those cases, you had Centenary that was moving and trying to figure out what they're going to do in terms of Division III status, Division I. They didn't offer football, and the same thing when you had Pan American College out of Texas at one time was looking at membership in the SWAC. Same thing, they didn't have football. So it was harder for them to get the vote because people wanted a full member of the conference in terms of football. The other thing that is interesting to me that I think is important that we have to get out of here, we have to really fascinate on the HBCUs, not just the ability to diversify for the sake of diversifying, bringing in a historically white college because it's in a footprint. The reason that you do expansion, I will say this until I'm blue in the face because we see it, to miss over this and just gloss over this as if expansion is just a number game. You get bigger if it's a regional. It's a nice regional matchup. You expand for one reason in the conference. Either that you can find a way to decrease your expenses or you expand most of the time. The most important thing is to expand the pot. And what I mean by pot, you expand the revenue. Because if you expand without expanding the revenue, you're cutting up the chunks of pieces of the pie to a smaller portion. It makes no sense for you to do that, and you're not going to get presidents and chancellors to expand when you can't put on the table a rationalization of how you expand the pie. So nothing against Southeastern. I know they're in the region, but you're not going to expand against one team. How do you expand? Is it two historically white colleges you bringing in? And what do you bring in? For example, when you brought in FAMU, you were bringing in a big brand, big games, gates were going to increase. You had a chance to redo your television, negotiate that deal because of expansion, fighting to get those rights back. It was easier to make that case to ESPN. I think that's just about a done deal, right? So you bring them in. Then you go into Bethune-Cookman, not quite as big a brand, but collectively, now you bring in the Florida Classic, a brick brand that adds to your television package because now you have literally all of the major classics in your conference. So it's easy to see how the revenue pie, as you go for sponsors and corporate, has grown. I don't see that happen in Southeastern. What does Southeastern bring in? Nothing against the institution. I'm just saying financially, what does Eastern bring in? Does it have a classic? No. Does it have a large attendance fan base? No. Does it even have an academic rigor that puts it out spacing where maybe you can argue it helps other institutions get more grants? No, it's not in terms of that world of doctoral extensive program in any of the cases. So I don't see, especially individually, maybe you can make the argument collectively but it doesn't fit in terms of how you increase the pie.
Doc, the $1 million question I always have to ask is, do our presidents understand that fundamental key principle in terms of not just...
Yeah, I can answer that. Without a doubt, they do. Man. Charles at the helm, he has made sure he put that on the table. They were critically in terms of it. That's one of the reasons you saw Dr. Jason Cavils in terms of being in a position to take and earn a vice president of athletics role, because he was integral in the decisions that Charles played in terms of what this expansion would look like financially for the conference, how it would grow revenue. I put out on LinkedIn that there was 100% plus, I think it was over 130% increase in terms of corporations that were interested in the SWAC as the expansion took place, right? That is direct dollars that you can point to of how the revenue pie has increased. The other thing that you know that's important is when they looked at how do you divide up the conference, and some key decisions they looked at in terms of dividing it out and how they set up the regional matchups or crossovers so you wouldn't have the extended cost of travel. If some people had concerns legitimately about the conference spread out. So you don't see the case where you're going to see Bethune-Cookman flying to Texas and Prairie View the same season over a said period of time, or flying to Pine Bluff, or vice versa, Prairie View, Texas Southern, and Pine Bluff flying both to the Alabamas and the Florida. They're going to split it up so you don't have that enormous travel expense of every year. So again, how do you reduce travel expenses with expansion, or more importantly, increase revenue? So that's why I say that we really need to be careful when we're looking at expansion. And that's why I said it may even be too late for Tennessee State. And who do they partner with in terms of that? Can they make a case that their addition to the SWAC with another partner grows the pie? I'm not even sure by themselves, certainly, that they can grow the pie based on what took place. If they came in with FAMU, you had that in situation. I don't see it taking place. So I think it's a really important question. Even if Tennessee State comes knocking at the door, is it going to be open for them to take in? Even though many people would think it's a no-brainer. When you really look at the financial aspects, that is not the case. We're right upon it. I promise we got into that dialogue. I thought it was important because people put it out there. So we're going to share that in terms of that, in terms of what's going on there. So let me get back in here, take this last break, but we're going to tease out with this before we take in the break. I want Charles to turn in his homework assignment. The question was, Which is the toughest? The 6-member MEAC, the 6-member SWAC Eastern Division, or the 6-member Western Division? Everybody had an old pie and they gave their information. Those that were not in class for that assignment, you can turn it in now and type it at the bottom in there. You will get deducted for your late work, but it's better to get something than nothing. And so we're going to do the same. We're going to make sure Charles gets his come off, if you would. The second part of the question, and I'll say it again, which is the toughest when you just look at the top 3 teams in the above now, including the 3 independents. So obviously, I want you to look at the top 3 teams of the MEAC, top 3 teams of the SWAC Eastern Division, top 3 teams of the Western Division, and then 3 collective of the 3 independents. North Carolina A&T of the Big South, they preseason was ranked 3rd of the Big South. Tennessee State of the OVC was preseason picked 5th in the OVC, and Hampton in the Big South was preseason picked 7th. So stick with us because we're going to get Charles to get on the hot seat, give his perspective, what he says between those 2 questions on the homework assignment. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Biscuit. Stick with it so we can see Charles's answer to this time, as he thought he was going to get out of. No, you come to the last, you got to get it in. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Today on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab.
No big deal to me. I mean, you want to meet in Atlanta, we'll play in Atlanta. You know, it don't matter. You know, we can make it a classic. You don't have to come here. We don't have to go there. If they say it's too far, we can meet halfway. You know, we look for a game, looking for a game. We want to play the best. We don't duck and dodge. Ain't no Edward Waters on my schedule. Ain't no Edward Waters on my schedule. Ain't no Edward Waters on my schedule. Ain't no Edward Waters on my schedule.
Just saying. With that, Coach Maynard, we're going to let you have the last word in terms of Alabama A&M fans. But anything that you want to share with the viewers, any last thoughts you want to share?
That I want to share?
Yeah.
Oh, go Bulldogs. Hey, baby, y'all tune in ESPN this week. And we're gonna try to make you proud and give you the good show, offensive, defensive, special teams, and represent the way the Bulldogs represent.
Don't worry, it's all a part of the game. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern for Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Course, lecture, dismissed.
Test the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna love, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. After we took that quick break, as I went on the outro, I had Charles on the hot seat in terms of his question. Again, let me restate it to make sure he has it clear. I don't want to have any problems that he said that I threw him a curveball. Which is the toughest? 6-member MEAC, 6-member SWAC, Eastern Division, or 6-member Western Division. Then I'll state the second one when you get to it. But before I do that, Fred Whitten says, too few of the HBCU presidents, chancellors understand athletics as a sports entertainment business. Interesting.
Yep.
I think more of them are starting to understand. I will say that.
Very good point.
Kevin Crawford says TSU helps expand the brand. They have a Big West following that will help expand the brand into places like Chicago and Detroit. Interesting perspective.
Who can expand the brand?
Tennessee State.
Oh, okay.
So, without further ado, Charles, we got some folks out there that is quickly saying theirs. Troy Lamont says SWAC East. He also says SWAC East for the top 3. Barrett Williams, he continues with his SWAC West. Brian Gauthier says, and that's brother Brian Gauthier, former president of Ada Atlanta, says, no, sir. I get a lot. I'm a rattler. No hate. Much love to the J5. Wow. Stephen Gaither says it may be the CIAA North. He's sneaking in. I like that. We all gonna have to bring
tell Stephen I like the answer, but that was not the question. That was not in the question. I like it though.
But we did tell him last time that we were going to add that in there. We were going to do a breakdown of the mid-majors between the CIAA and the SIC. But he's getting ahead of us. CIAA North, he says Bowie State, Virginia State, and Virginia Union were all national ranked in the D2 in 2019. Great point. Yep. And great caveat to add on to it. Alan Malone says SWAC West. Got some folks that jumped in here, put back on what they said. Alan Malone says, you're silly. Edward Water's going to be branded for years. Nice. In terms of shout out to Dr. Roderick Byron Holmes, calling out him by his full name. With that, let me get back into it and allow Charles to answer. Before that, Mike D. just says SWAC West, Alcorn, Grambling, SU, and PV. He sneaks PV in that top three with 4 teams in terms of that. Or is he saying that's his overall answer? I apologize. In terms of that, Kevin Crawford says SWAC East is the toughest. Charles, what do you say? You hear what your other colleagues have said out here in the class lecture today? What do you have for us as you see I'm leaning over to get into your answer? With bated breath, I wait.
Yeah, I think the addition of Alcorn to the SWAC West tips the balance into the SWAC West's favor. That being said, the reason why I'm not seeing the SWAC East at this point right now is I just don't have the data available for the teams in the SWAC East. I think Alabama A&M, with what they bring back, it makes the SWAC East very top heavy, but we don't know what Florida A&M is without Ryan Stamp. We know they got the receivers. We know they got the secondary with Marquise Bell, but I'm curious to see who steps into the quarterback position there for Florida A&M. Jackson State is a great unknown. We know that they've flipped out since the spring, but with Alcorn going from the SWAC East to the SWAC West, you now have Alcorn, top-notch quarterback, former SWAC Offensive Player of the Year. You got Southern. They're loaded for bear. Definitely going to be a team right in the mix. They bring back Ladarius Skelton, super senior, and played in a ton of huge games. UAPB with Skylar Perry. So when you talk about those 3 teams unto itself, that's enough to tip the balance in the favor of the SWAC West to me. When you take a look at the MEAC, a data point for me was watching what Alabama A&M did to South Carolina State in the spring. So, that was a huge win, if you will, for Alabama A&M. So I can't necessarily put the MEAC on par with regards to the SWAC West. Like I said, I just think when you add Alcorn to the mix over there in the West, I think Grambling will be resurgent as well. And then Prairie View. I think Prairie View is a team that you still have to keep an eye out on. They still don't have that victory that you can pin, especially over Southern. So I keep an eye out for that. But the SWAC West, man, it's tough over there. It's very tough. But I think this is the year that the SWAC East kind of evens things out. I really do believe that when you start taking a look at Alabama A&M, Florida A&M, Bethune-Cookman, because I'm not going to leave them out. They have historically had success playing SWAC teams. And then, of course, Jackson State is sitting out there. So I can't discount Jackson State.
I like the way he hedges his bets. He said SWAC West to begin things because of what has taken place in the quarterbacks. But by the end of the season, he's saying there may be a clear shift to SWAC East. So does that mean that you have SWAC West and SWAC East over the MEAC? Or are you pushing MEAC to number 2 over SWAC East at the beginning?
I don't have a North Carolina A&T in the MEAC anymore. They are a game changer for me. So who challenges South Carolina State? Is it Morgan State? I think Morgan State, a very good victory over North Carolina A&T. But who is the team that's going to challenge South Carolina State over there in the MEAC? So right now, yes, I with the addition of FAMU and Bethune-Cookman to the SWAC East, yeah, I think it is SWAC West 1 and then SWAC East 2 as of August, 12th.
Troy is just acting up. He said, "Nice try." Steve gave the nod. Then he says, "There's levels to this," in my big firm voice. He's just acting up.
And you know what, Stephen? I like what he did there with the CIAA North, but I always say when you're talking with those Division II teams, I don't think they can take out the top 3 teams in the SWAC or the top 3 teams in the MEAC.
But between the 3, they are more competitive. They are competitive. That's for their level. Equivalency.
Yeah, I give that all day.
Good deal. I would ask you to give your thoughts on that, Mike, but I know in many ways, actually, Charles, you may be surprised. You line up with what Mike said in terms of the entire 16 division of conference. Maybe we'll get a little more debate as we start to close up on the last part, the second question of the assignment, as we get in here, which is fascinating. And this is going to be interesting for Troy because we bring in A&T. He said last time that Hampton and Tennessee State were bringing down the independent in terms of the top 3. We'll see if Charles agrees with that on this perspective in terms of now looking at just the top 3. So it gets a little interesting. You get to pick your top 3. I'm not going to tell you what that is, but your top 3 in the MEAC. Sounds like you got a little concern there because you only had a top 1 essentially. You said Morgan State maybe, Norfolk there, not quite convinced in terms of the coaching change. There's going to be enough to weigh out, but we'll see versus your perspective of what your top 3 would be in the East and your top 3 in the West, as well as the independents as a collective, which is A&T, North Carolina A&T, Tennessee State, and Hampton. Of those 4 now, in terms of just looking at the top 3, what is the toughest in your area? And you can go from weakest to toughest, or you can just give the toughest.
So the question is the top 3 independents out there.
Yeah, you put top 3 and you weigh them as if they were a conference unto themselves. So now in the top 3 in the MEAC, your choice of what those top 3 teams in the MEAC, comparing it to what you perceive as the top 3 teams in the SWAC Eastern Division, what you perceive as the top 3 teams in the Western Division, and the 3 independents as one grouping. Of those 3, what do you see as the toughest in terms of looking at all 4 areas?
I still would have to say that the toughest will be the SWAC West. I think that when you take a look at it, North Carolina A&T is far in a way. The separation between them and Hampton and Tennessee State is a little bit too far. So if you're going to look at the independents, it's A&T and everybody else. That being said, the competitiveness I think of the SWAC West still leaves them up there. And like I said, I just don't have the data with regards to the SWAC East teams yet, other than Alabama A&M. I know what they give me. I don't know what an Alabama State is going to give me a great team one week and not sure what I'm going to get to next week. So that's sort of the dynamic that I get with SWAC.
Great point. Mike, give you a chance to kind of jump in here and rebut. I think you said a lot of that, so you might not have much of that, but want to give you at least a chance to come in on your colleague and tell me what your thoughts are.
Let me make sure I'm clear with this, folks. It is the top 3 in the SWAC West, without question. Okay? Remember when Dr. Cavil asked me, I said 92.5%. If you look back statistically, 10 years, folks who have won the SWAC, 92.5% are now in the SWAC West. They are teams like Alcorn State. There are teams like Grambling. Yes, you have an occasional Jackson State if you go back far enough, an occasional Alabama A&M. But if you look at the top 3, it is still the SWAC West. You look at the most stable position on the team. You look at the SWAC West. You look at the FAMU. Yes, FAMU has a very good defense. They have a solid team. They have, what's the quarterback coming in, QB1, Rayshon, I forget his last name.
Sean McKay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sean McKay, yes. You don't know how good he's going to be. Of course, you have Akil Glass, but Shador, new. You expect good, but you don't know. X factors. So it is the SWAC West on all accounts. Course lecture dismissed early for me. So I'm not changing my answers. It is the SWAC West. As far as the independents, I do agree with CB. There's North Carolina A&T, and then there's everybody else. I think Hampton is expected to come in the 7th. I don't think they've come in above 7th since they've been there. Tennessee State is expected to come in 5th in the OVC. They only came in 5th 1 year. After that, they've been like 7th and 8th in the OVC. So no, not competitive there. The best 3, the most competitive 3, the best 6 are in the SWAC West. Just so that we're clear, crystal clear. SWAC West. The best is in the West now. With the
as of August 12th, I will feed that to you.
Yeah, I think Mike has come back with your license that you did a couple of weeks ago, and he dropped his own license. So that'll do it for us. Everybody's chiming in here. Great comments, Steve Gates, Troy Lamont. Appreciate Kevin Crawford giving out, talking about the SWAC West, SWAC East, excuse me. Ricky Burton says SWAC West, no question. Karen Griffin back in with that 93.2%. She loves it. G. Boone Holly is laughing. So we got some good stuff in here. Aaron Beaver says TSU slander. He's not happy about that. Number 3, he has independence. So he puts MEAC at 4 in terms of top 3, because number 2 he has SWAC West.
So he put them above. Let me get this right. He put them above South Carolina State, Norfolk State, and Morgan State. He put the independents above them. And I got to hear this logic.
So this is really good. I appreciate it. Great comments by all. We'll do it again next week. Check us out. We'll get in a little more of the talk, get a chance to see the CIAA, SIAC. We'll see if we can find Steve Gaither's schedule and see if he'll come in here and give us a little banter in terms of the top 3. What is better? SIAC East, SIAC West, CIAA North, CIAA South. Of the 4, get ready, do your homework assignment, and let me know which is the toughest overall division. And then we'll go and really make you do a little more of your homework like Mike and drop your license and give me your top 3 in each area. Like what you said there, Mike. Kudos to Charles. He brought it as well. Have to re-examine. I was going to give him an A-, but he backed it up. So can't get the A+. His paper's late, so he might get the A. We'll see what's going on. I think Mike is leading the class with the A+. He really putting it down. We'll see if folks can get better next week, as we'll drop the next quiz next week and see if y'all come back in and do better. Because some of y'all missing these assignments. Y'all go find your way getting that F² in the semester. Try me if you want to. I told you I put it in. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from Inside the HBCU Lab, College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. Back from assignment all the way in Nassau, Bahamas. Yeah, that was good. I'll tell y'all some secrets afterwards. Hopefully the mics are not out. We hope you enjoy our conversations, getting it in. Great banner between those lab lectures, getting out here and give us the information. Again, we thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson, Charles Bishop, every Tuesday and Thursday right here at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. I might be moving locations. You might find me delivering from a different location out of my home office. These guys will still be in the home office, but we'll see what's going on. But without a doubt, right here at 6 o'clock. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DRKENYATTHCAVIL. It's DRKENYATTHCAVIL on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube is Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on YouTube. Before I do our closing statement, Mike, did you want to jump in there? You picking on somebody already?
Yeah, I'm picking on these comments.
Now. Don't become a teacher.
But when we were on the mic, we heard from the pregame show. Wanted to give Neely a terrific job. He came on and just wished CB a belated happy birthday. He did I give him a lot of grief, but he did a hell of a job as QB. So also wanted to 1876 Sports and Culture. It's coming soon, starting season 2, August 29th. coming to a streaming location near you.
I like it. Great point. Shout out to Byron of AD in terms of the sports rap. No, he held it down as well.
Yep, Byron and AD as well. Great job.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I did want to give a shout out to Charles in terms of birthday. I got a surprise for him tomorrow at lunch. We'll make sure that I wasn't here. So we'll catch up with him. If not tomorrow for lunch, certainly for the weekend, for the next show. Excited for him, and I heard they really made sure that he enjoyed his birthday as it should be. And thanks for all the live listeners and all the folks out of the pregame show, giving a lot of, including the Southern baseball team, giving a little give them a shout out. That was a nice way to get it done. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon, Charles.
Of course.
Mike.
Lecture.
Dismiss.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know 'em like I